Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 1. We'll be presenting on our article review regarding ethical and legal issues in Islamic finance. Finance is perceived as an essential aspect exercised by various levels. It can be referred to the planning, allocation and understanding of funds and investment. Meanwhile, Islamic finance can be considered the process by which firms and people obtain cash and invest in ways that incorporate distinctive socially responsible value that comply with Islamic law. As the value give benefit at large, several ethical and legal issues, especially being practiced by conventional bodies, hinder the utilization of Islamic finance. This presentation aims to understand this issue by reviewing and evaluating arguments from various scholars.
The first ethical problem is riba in financial system, and we choose article titled riba, a tool that should be carved out of financial transactions written by law. So the objective is to investigate riba and also explain the reason behind its removal from financial transaction. So based on his study, the writer used a qualitative approach, and he's citing others' authors' opinions to support his argument, and he uses specific events for his example, and also he interprets his own understanding by conveying his argument. So riba is defined as any contractual escalation in a loan or obligation due to the time element where it is prohibited in Islam. Then there are two types of riba, which is riba al-nasiyah or riba al-jahliyah, that refers to the excess charge on the loan transactions, and riba al-fadli, that refers to the excess charge on sales transactions. So the writer argued that riba will lead to the bankruptcy of the global economy, and it is an ineffectual method for increasing the utility cost, and the reasons to avoid riba because it was unjust income and to prevent the financial interest and to prevent the capitalism economies. And it also can cause the economic volatility and leads to the inflation and creates the gaps between the community and disrupt the economic flow. However, this article has few limitations, which is it lacks of quantitative approach because no data provided, no survey, and no interview conducted. And it is not mentioned the way to abolish the riba practices, and this focus on the reason and also the theory. So our suggestion is to further research should be done in realizing the gaps of this issue.
In the case of Maisir, in the article Absurdity of Islamic Finance, the case of Gharar and Maisir, author Pejman Abdifar's main argument is that the Islamic finance laws are too set on the literal approach of Islamic jurisprudence rather than focusing on the aspects of Maqasid Sharia in it. He intends to prove that by implementing the latter approach, the Islamic finance laws are able to be redefined. This article was meant to critically analyze the way that Islamic jurists have been viewing the doctrines of Gharar as well as Maisir. The author have been using a lot more of qualitative approach as opposed to quantitative in his writing by mostly citing the words of other scholars as well as the Quran to enhance his arguments.
Ibn Arabi defined Maisir as getting money through luck by playing in games with the goal of defeating their opponent to win the property set aside for the winner. Commercial insurance and index trading are two modern financial actions that have been discussed in this article, as they are thought to contain components of Maisir, yet there are other assertions that rule out their illegality. Commercial insurance is thought to have the Maisir elements because the amount paid back is not equal to the amount paid. It is either get nothing or more than the premium paid. However, the agreement that exists make it permissible in Islam. Next, index trading lacks the features of Maisir since the gain or loss are based on the economic conditions, hence not affect an excessive amount of investors' monies unlike Maisir.
As for the case of Gharar, this article is using a qualitative approach. The object is to find a definition through the meaning of Gharar in Quran and the Arabic dictionary. So the authors go through the linguistic meaning of Gharar. So Gharar in the Arabic dictionary is considered to mean deception. Gharra is meaning mislead or to deceive. Taghrir is meant deception or misrepresentation. Other words with the same meaning, such as tadlis, have the meaning of defraud or misrepresentation. Ghubun, which is prohibited under the Islamic contracts, has the meaning of cheating or fraud. The authors found that jurists does not differentiate between fraud, misrepresentation, cheating, or deception. In other words, they all these words gives the same meaning. So the concept is understood differently according to which school a scholar is loyal to. This creates a limitation because it's difficult to follow all Muslim schools in this regard, as there has been no throughout academic analysis explaining these possible differences. So the authors also search for the meaning of Gharar in Quran. So God describes those who defraud or deceive people as people with diseased hearts in Quran. The Quran considered deceit or defraud to be linked with the habit of lying, as well as gharar or anything linked to it is considered of the manners of the devil. Therefore, gharar in the verses of Quran is mentioned using one of its nouns or even expressions. Finally, a critical point that the authors argue is that defining gharar as risk or uncertainty is weird, because risk exists in any trade, even in Islamic transactions, while uncertainty is always there because God only knows what's in the future. Therefore, the authors found that gharar is deceptive misrepresentation and usage of misleading means.
In sum, we can see that there are still ethical issues that happen in the world of Islamic finance. The prohibition of riba, gharar and maisir will lead to the perfect financial activities to build a more equitable distribution of wealth among the society. In addition, lack of awareness among the societies contributes to the existence of ethical issues. Besides, scholars of these articles need to consider enhancing their method of research to have more sufficient and complete data. For instance, the scholars can perform interviews with the public to get additional opinions. The scholars can also make more articles that explain these illegal issues holistically. This is important to make people aware of problems from this institution. Thus, it is hopeful that these legal and ethical issues can be avoided in the present and future time.